Hi, welcome to
Yeah.
Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. My guest today is another YouTuber, Willie Smith. Welcome to my channel.
What's going on? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being my guest. You caught my attention on Instagram because I was looking at double knitting, and there you were showing and making it look super easy.
Yes, yes.
And I started going through your Instagram profile. I started reading some of your posts, and I saw that you said that you had a vision, and your vision
Yes.
was to make sure that knitters make whatever they want. How did it all start? Tell me your story. Tell me how this vision came to be.
Okay. Well, I'll start from the very beginning. Back in 2007, that's when I learned to knit. It was a college friend who showed me how to knit. And I think she just thought it was like some kind of like crazy pickup line, because like the way that I looked, the way that I dressed, it was a lifetime ago. And possibly like she was like, there's no way this person would want to know how to knit. Like, look at him, right? And like I bugged her for a good 3 weeks, almost a month, and she finally ended up showing me how to knit, purl, and cast on. So freaked out, she couldn't even like. She didn't even show me how to bind off. Like she was just like, I was on my own for that. So that's where it started, in summer 2007. And as soon as I touched those needles and like I got to see that I made something with my own hands, it was just off to the races from there. Like it was just such a magical opportunity. Like I felt like, like how like you just come into like how Spider-Man like came into his new powers is like, yo, I can do some damage with these. I can make a real difference because like, I come from a teaching background, being a math teacher inside of schools, some like the inner city schools, and a lot of creativity and just being in that environment. I have to teach math differently because my students were different. They learned different, but that didn't mean that they were lesser. So I brought all of that experience with me, like becoming like a knitter, and I just wanted to be able to teach people how to do it, and because that feeling of like I did that, and I can do more of that. I can do that thing better, or seeing something in a store and be like, I can make that. Like that's where my vision really came from. I want to be a part of a community or contribute to a community of people who knit that can make whatever they want. They don't have to resort to a pattern if they don't want to, because we get patterns and we modify them anyway to our
Right.
liking because that's what we do it for anyway, right? We just need like a basis to jump off of, and the only thing that's between people making what they want and where they are is skill set. If you want to modify something the way you want to, there's certain skills that that will meet that end, and the more people know how to do that, the better. And I feel like my vision is is all positive because everybody wins. We have these designers that want to have people buy their stuff because they spend so much time in making these designs and making these patterns, and they're selling the patterns, so they need money, they want money. And we have people that don't know how to do the things in the patterns, and therefore they won't buy the pattern from the designers that's designing the pattern.
Right.
So if there's the people that know how to do that and like know how to do the skills and have the skills to make the things that the designers are selling, then the designers will sell more, and more of that creativity will be out there because people are going to modify anyway. It's endless. So that's my vision, and I know it's going to outlast me. So I'll do whatever I can to further it while I'm here.
Well, let me ask you about your personal progress with knitting, right? So you learned how to knit and purl and cast on. Where did you go from there? Like, how did you learn those skills good enough to explain it to others and teach it to others?
Well, my vision really pretty much drove me. Like my like philosophy, like if I know it, I can show it, right? I started with flat things, right? Scarves, garter stitch, knit everything, right? Um, Introducing some pearls here and there and just seeing how the thing would change. Looking at a lot of books, and I found out that like books were just not the way that I learned the best. So that was around like YouTube started picking up steam and taking off. So I watched a lot of stuff. I watched a lot of Stacey Perry. I watched a lot of Very Pink Knits. A whole lot of that. I got my technique from her. Like how I knit is how she knits. That's where I got it from. And I began to get faster and bite up some nerve to knit in the round. I still have my first hat. It's a monstrosity, but it's my monstrosity. And I love it because it showed where I came from. And now I have overflowing buckets of hats and all kinds of intricate designs and things like that. But like that's what drove me to learn more, because if I was going to be the one that was going to be the pillar, the one that's going to change the game, I needed to know exactly how this stuff worked. And, if somebody ran into an issue, I could kind of already anticipate what went wrong somewhere. Like, this is where you dropped the stitch. This is why this looks like this. You did this instead of doing this. And in order for me to have that experience, I had to get some needles. I had to get some yarn through those needles, a lot of it.
Well, you know how, like, when you're a teacher, you have the year-long curriculum, right? And you have the plan for the year, you have the plan for the lesson. It's all like very pre-planned, the entire thing. You have to have some flexibility to be able to explain it to different people, but like there is a core path. Do you have that core path in your knitting? Like, do you know, vision is one thing, right? But like to have
Sure.
those, what you're gonna do next, how you're gonna get community involved, how you're gonna, what you're gonna teach next. Are you a planner?
Yes, I am very much a planner, but not in like the traditional orthodox sense, because the people that I'm working with and teaching, those are the people that matter the most to me. And I have to like sprinkle some marketing into that. I have to make this stuff look sexy. I have to make it look attractive, because that's why people resort to doing things by hand, because they want to have it their way, right? So if they want to have it their way, I start from the end goal. X marks the spot, the prize. What do you want? I want a sweater. Okay, great. What kind of sweater? And we pretty much build this whole thing and design this whole thing in our minds and like in fantasy. And then we work backwards to make it real. Right. And through that journey of working backwards, we figure out the skills required to make that happen. So we're going to start bottom up. We're going to do this kind of cast on. We're going to knit this many stitches. Do you know how to measure yourself? Do you know what ease is? We're running into those things as we go along. It's just like the yellow brick road on the Wizard of Oz, right? We had to travel down the road to figure out what we needed, and then figured out we just needed it all along. So the thing that we have all along is the willingness. That's what drives us. And me knowing that, like, that's what I use into my plan of knitting, because the willingness is what drives us through, and that's what's going to keep us going when nothing else will. So that's how I plan those things out for people.
So, okay, you start a sweater and somebody describes you the dream sweater that they want to knit.
Sure.
Does that ever trip you up? Like, do you ever run into things that you don't know how to do?
Of course, because knitting's so big. It's so vast, right? When I say that I'm going to change the game, not one time did I say I was an expert. Not one time did I say I knew everything. But usually that kind of thing is assumed, right? And that's where we all fall short, and that's where the judgment comes, right? I never said that. When you're a teacher, you should be a lifelong student, forever. You should always be learning, and I'm always learning. I put out tutorials on things that people want, and I've never even seen before. I'm like, what is that? Okay, we got to learn that right now. Let's go. Right. So I find things that I've never seen before in a lot of stuff, especially when it comes to design, because people may want to see something in their mind's eye, but they don't know how to put that on paper, let alone put that on fabric. That's a whole nother thing. So I run into that way more. And I feel like that's what gives me the advantage, because I've been exposed to things that are just not linear. They're all over the place. And you got to be able to navigate those things, and being exposed to different types of patterns and what techniques will make this happen this way, make it lean this way, make the cable go forwards versus backwards, stuff like that. So,
well, when you started with the YouTube, who was the audience you were making those videos for? Like, did you have some people in mind that you were making those videos for, or was it just like, oh, this technique interests me, so I'm gonna put out a tutorial for this technique?
Okay, so I actually started on Instagram. The start everything off 2019, October 2019. I started on Instagram, but I started out. Again, this is the planning part, right? There's like on the edges, on the extremes, right? We have people that are like super expert, snobby, cares about themselves, want to put things out to show things off, right? We have that swath of people, right? And then on the way other end, we have people that's like, what's the difference between a knit and a purl? Way over there. And then you have like the giant middle that's like, I know a little bit, but I don't know enough to do the thing. That is the group that I focused on when I do all my videos, because there's like, that is the group that's going to move the needle for the entire community, both economically and creatively. They have the money. They want to buy the pattern. They know enough to know what this is, but they don't know enough to get what they want. So they're right in the limbo middle spot. So I make all my videos for those folks, right? And like the snobs can still see my stuff, and the people who don't know anything about anything can see that stuff, and they can slowly move into the middle. Because people at the top, they ain't going nowhere, right? They're just going to be where they are. They know enough, but they don't want to teach. So.
Well, how do you explain your success? Because you grew tremendously on Instagram. Like you have a huge following there. What makes people attracted to you? Because like you mentioned Stacy at Pink Knits. I mean, there are so many experts on YouTube,
Sure.
many experts on Instagram. There are people who explain every kind of technique. What do you think attracts people to you?
I think the thing that people are attracted to me for is because I'm a human. And I know those other folks are humans, but the way I speak to people is very human, sit on the subway waiting for the bus, waiting for the subway type of speech. And that's very intimidating. It's not intimidating at all. That's very welcoming. It's warm. When you don't know something and then you have somebody that's like Harvard expert, baccalaureate, whatever, summa cum laude, they're speaking an entirely different language to you. And people pick up on facial expressions and body language, right? When you may not know in the words that you're being condescended to, but you feel it first. The limbic takes over. And I know what it's like to feel small. I know what it's like because that's happened to me. I've had a snob really like cut me down and make me feel like microscopic when it came down to like, I just want to learn how to do something. And I vowed to not let anybody feel like that, because that's terrible. Like that'll literally crush your dreams. That this person could have so much potential and you just stamp them out. You know what I mean? And I don't like that. Everybody has the opportunity to be like a raging inferno, but every raging inferno starts with a number.
But when we started this interview, you sort of mentioned that the lady that taught you how to knit didn't even believe that you are serious because you weren't the type, right? The stereotypical type of person who might be into knitting. Do you get a lot of attitude from people because you're not the type now?
Yes, I'd have to say yes, and I don't say that to like look like a victim or anything like that. I know I'm different, and I lean into that. That is like my advantage, actually, because it's new, it's unique, it's novel. The main thing that I got a lot of flack for, not necessarily flack, but like skepticism for, is that like I was doing these things and it was right. Like the things were correct, and the way that I was doing them, people would do the same things and they would achieve the same result that I was achieving. So that verified everything that I was saying, at least at that time. And that's what really built on that stuff. And I was using terms and things that we run into in everyday life. And that's what I did when I teach math, right? Like it has to matter. It has to come from, I have to build a bridge between what they already know and where they want to go. I have to build that bridge. And like, I feel like I do that so well because I feel like that's my calling. And I lean into that. And like, I want to be able to do that for the rest of my life and just be able to do that. Because I wouldn't say it comes natural, but that's the thing that lights me up the most. Like I would teach for free if I could. I would do all of this for free if I could. I love it that much.
Well, let's talk about the money business side of that.
Let's go. Let's go.
How did that start? Like, at what point did you decide to turn it into business?
Okay. Let's see. October 2019 was when I started with Little Knits. 3 months before that, my wife, her friend, saw me online, like Facebook. I started on Facebook. I was Black Sheep Crafts, right? And I was making hats. I was making things. and putting them on, like trying to figure it out. And she had seen one that I had made. It was a hat. I guess it was like the CC Beanie inspired type one, with the little, and like she'd seen that and she was like, oh, that looks nice. I was like, oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And then she was like, how much? And I was like, what? Wait, you think this is good enough? Like you would buy this. And it was over from there because I was like, I've achieved a level of skill that was marketable. And that's when it started. So October 2019, that's when I started Willie Nilly Knits, the show, the channel, the Instagram handle. And then let's see, 3 years later, that's when I opened up the LLC, WNK LLC. And like, that's where it all came out. So like, I have like the whole umbrella with different products and services that I offer for people for the vision.
Do you think it stops you from being like the true artist, the fact that you turn it into a business? Does that moves like what you can do and won't do in different directions?
That's a great question. So I struggled with that at first, because like if you're a business, money has to be revolving around business. Like business and money have to go together some kind of way, right? And at the same time, every knitter wants to knit for free. every knitter wants yarn for free, needles for free, stuff for free. So I always want to ask myself, like, how could I do this, the thing that I love, and get paid for it? So at first I started doing like commission like projects. Like I would make things for people. That's exactly what turned out to be the thing that limited me and stifled me and stymied me. And there was one that it just happened recently. Like this lady wanted a bolero, those things that have like the sleeves with the back and nothing else. It's just so stylish and just whimsical and small and lacy. And I charged the lady like, X amount of dollars for it. And it was taking up all of my time and all of my energy. It was way too much that I bit off way more than I can chew. And like, there are things that I wanted to make, but I had this deadline. And I was just like, I hate this. This is not great. I want to do other things. And so I like refunded all their money back. And like, I never felt better. And that was the point where I knew that like doing the commission patterns or the commission like project was not for me. So I had to figure out like how to like do things in another way. Finish objects, private sessions, collaborations, affiliate programs, ambassadorships, those kinds of things, because I can still move and influence the masses while promoting a certain product for a certain company, and that company would pay me to do that thing. So what I originally set out to have, like that question, I answered it doing it that way, but I had to figure out what not to do in the process. So like that was pretty stark for me. So like that's what really gave me direction.
Well, when there are a lot of people who trying to sell what they make. And sure. I have some friends who like, this is what they do for a living, right? They turn it into full-time career. When you started selling finished objects, like, do you have an issue of how to price it? Because like we're very comfortable, like when we take a corporate job, we know how much we want to make per hour. When we need something and it takes us endless hours, we suddenly compare ourselves with Target prices, right? Or Walmart prices. How do you approach it, and what would be your advice for other knitters out there?
Great question. You're speaking to the people now. Oh man. Okay. So like when I used to do hats, I would take a lot of things into consideration. The time in which it takes to work, the simplicity of the pattern or the difficulty of the pattern, and like, the size of the yarn, all of those things, right? Like the gauge, because that plays into the time, right? But then you also got to look into the market, right? Who are you marketing to? If you're selling a finished object, you're marketing to someone that either does not know how to knit, but likes handmade objects, and they want to support small businesses, however many people that is. And then you can mix those folks into, yeah, I know how to knit, but I don't want to spend the time to do it. I still want to help small businesses. I'll buy that. That population of people is like a drop in a bucket when it comes to the entire knitting community, because now everybody knows how to do what you're doing. So if that sounds like market saturation to me. So if something's saturated in the market, to balance out the supply and demand. The demand is really, really high. I mean, the demand is really, really low, but the supply is high. So you have to put that into consideration. So if you're going to set yourself apart between in that space, what are you doing that is so valuable and so not common? I don't want to say rare, but not common, right? So if you're going to, and can you do it in a fast time, right? Because like, you know, the controversial machine knitting thing, right? The Centros, like, you know, the Addies, the other ones. I don't know all of them because I don't really like mess with them too much at all. But you're competing with those folks too. If you want just a simple beanie, you can either spend 2-3 days or 20 minutes, right? And then you're talking material, you know, wool, or you know, a higher quality fiber like cashmere. This is cashmere, right? So like this hat right here, this is $104, right? It took me a couple days to make, but how would you price that? Is it 150? Who's gonna buy for 150? The people that know how to do what you do, right? Because somebody can get like some basic stitch stuff with like and make it themselves, or put that on a knitting machine, crank that out in 20 minutes, and they saved 115. Right. What? You know, so like those are the things that like you have to consider. So the things that I would like tell other people is that you want to spend a good amount of time. I don't know how much time it is for you, but a good amount of time figuring out who you are selling to. What psychographic, not demographic, what psychographic are you selling to, right? And that's what's really going to help you move your prices, you know. Like what, and that's why like I kind of stepped out of this space, because no matter how whatever number shook out, whatever number like came to me, it didn't make sense, because I kept running into the fact that there are tens of thousands of people that know how to do what I'm doing. So how could I walk away saying like this is going to be this price? It's going to stay up there forever. No one's going to buy it, because they already know they can do it cheaper, because now knitting meets competitive pricing, and everybody wants to get something for the lowest price. And we all know if we knit and you're trying to sell your knits, you have infused what you think your time is worth. And that's subjective, not objective, right? And you're not a machine. You can't make that same hat the same way twice. We know that too. So there's a lot of those factors, and that's why I had to step away, because I knew that wasn't a sustainable kind of like model.
Well, you know all these techniques. What prevents you, like when I look at your patterns that you published, they're super simple, right? And you actually mentioned that you did it specifically because you wanted to attract like novices and make it simple to people and teach them all the techniques on simple garments.
Yes.
What prevents you from becoming like a full-blown designer and going in that direction?
The thing that prevents me from doing that is because when I do that, I literally put myself in a box. Because if I'm a designer, and I'm just plugged in with the rest of the designers, right? No offense to designers, because if you're going to be a designer, you know your lane, right? My lane, my vision is bigger than design, even though I have like some design in there, right? Everything that I do and everything that I touch, everything that has to do with me, it has little bits of the vision's DNA in it, right? My patterns that I publish, yes, they're very simple, because I want you to walk away with a hat, but you know how to do a certain technique that you can apply to what you already know and make whatever else. That's part of the vision, making what you want, right? So like that's what it's about for me. And because like if I was to try to be like a designer, then I would end up being in the same situation as if I was doing commission patterns, right? Like how would I make a living off that? Now I'm selling patterns that I have to spend time on just to keep things afloat. And from a business standpoint, that's only one stream of income. That can't be the only thing. You can't have one in this game. You won't survive. You need at least three to even like be like, all right, so this is not necessarily a hobby anymore. It's not like a jobby. Like I put some time in, I can make some money. I got to write this off on taxes now. That type of stuff, right? So one way can't be the goal, and that's what keeps me from doing that.
Do you ever get in a state of mind that like, why am I doing this? Why am I spending all my time doing these things when I could have done something else? Or when like people criticize something that you do, or people tell you that you're not doing it the right way, or like whatever negativity comes your way, do you ever question yourself and your vision?
There were times. There were times in the early stages, you know, when I started the vision and I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. And you know, when you start something like that, the vision's still fragile, right? I haven't had enough experience or enough exposure or enough things happen to me that solidified my vision, solidified like what I wanted to do. And like in the early stages, there were questions. I was like, man, bro, you putting a lot of money into this, you putting a lot of time into this. You sure this gonna work? You know, you staying up a lot. You know what I mean? Like you're not doing these things, and you know you got a family. You know, you saying that this is gonna like replace your day job, and can't really see it right now. You know, people are seeing that. You know, you're a black guy, you're knitting. Like, how good can you really be? And all this kind of stuff. So like the questions were definitely there. Like, bro, like is this really it? You know what I mean? And then like the things that kind of like solidified that for me is like, what day job do you know that you hadn't spent like, you know, 3/4 of your life doing, and they retire you the way that you want? Every person that ever like not made it, every person that's retired comfortably pretty much worked for themselves or they own something. And that's what kind of kept me moving towards that, because the passion of me knowing I can teach anybody something, and the energy that I have in this market, just seeing the opportunity for like the niche, I was like, this is the window. This is the moment. At least go all out and just see where it takes you. You know, like go for some money, make some money, and see where that can go. Make some connections, build some relationships, and see where it goes. And now we're here, right? So I'm really glad that I
Okay,
made
like
that
let's talk
decision.
about where we are now. Do you,
Yeah.
when you look at where you are now and what you already achieved, are you satisfied with that success? Are you like blown away by that success, or your brain already planning into the future, seeing how to make it an empire?
I would definitely be remiss to say if I didn't say like I wasn't blown away. I am so blown away. I'm blown away tremendously. At the very same time, this is what I envisioned. Now, when you envision something, you don't know what it actually looks like, right? But I knew what it was going to feel like per se, because I knew, because like I was creating videos for years. I was down 3 years deep to 2019 to 2022, like 2022. I didn't even break 5,000 followers. But I knew I was always one video away. I'm one video away. I'm one video away from blowing up. And December 2022 was the day of the month and the year that like I hit 5K, and then it just shot up to the moon from there. And that kind of validation, that kind of like I told you so moment, because I kept the faith through all of it, and just thinking about all the things that I had to do, all the nights I stayed up, all the times I snuck away to go knit somewhere and stuff like that, it all paid off. It all made sense. And like that's what really made me all in, because I was impacting way more people than I could ever do doing anything else that I could like say that mattered, I guess, you know, because I wasn't really selling a product, right? I was selling an emotion, right? I was selling like a life status, right? I was selling memories like Disneyland does. That's why they're so successful, right? I'm selling intangibles, right? Because people want access to those intangibles, and that's why like I'm super blown away. But like at the same time, this is a step along the way. Because if I was just like, this is amazing, and I get stuck in this, I can't move forward, and the vision dies. So like I'm enjoying it as it goes, looking forward to more, consistently pushing for more. Like I don't even look at my Instagram follower account anymore, right? Because it was never about that.
Oh,
Right?
it's
I'm just glad that, you know,
136,000 at the moment.
somebody's looking, right? Somebody's looking. But again, like, you know, I don't want to get so caught up in that, because I am human. I am of the flesh, and I have, you know, humanly worldly desires, right? Because I'm human, And I get too caught up in that, like I'm trying to put fail safes in things in front of my desires to keep me on the straight and narrow, because I know how I am. I know I have addictive personality. I know I'm a ham. I know that like people start talking about me and saying all these good things about me, I can get stuck and lost in the sauce, right? So like there has to be things that keep me grounded. So.
Well, when you're doing a lot of teaching, so you're doing a lot of one-on-one teaching, but there is that many hours in a day, and you have family, you have young kids, you have your wife who likes things, I've heard in one of the shorts.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does.
How do you see it in the future? Because like you can't, like at some point you come to a limit, right? There is only that many classes you can teach, there is only that many hats you can knit, and there is that much
Yes.
you can, so it's like, how do you see it progressing from here? Do you think about that?
Absolutely. Like I always begin with the end in mind, and the end looks something akin to having a partnership with a major company. I travel the world and I still teach knitting while representing that brand. So a brand ambassador, Stacey Perry is a brand ambassador for Knitter's Pride. And like, she never has to pay for another knitting needle or a scrap of yarn in her life, right? And she still influences people all across the world, and she's still doing those things. I see myself doing that, right? Because it all comes down to money when we really get it down to the brass tacks, right? When there's enough income to not do the hats, to not do the classes, to not do the promotional videos and things like that, then all that energy and all that time, all that space gets opened up to do the bigger work, right? How do we use knitting to change the community, right? But right now it's this, I got to be scrappy. I got to figure out, get all my coins together and things like that, and get those things together so I can fund that dream, because every project or every enterprise has to be funded, right? These things are the lifeblood of it. So that's why since I've been discovered with all of these followers and things like that, that's caught the attention of bigger brands, right? I just did the thing, Joy of Knitting from Knitter's Pride, right? Been following them for years. They followed me yesterday. So that sounds like there's some value there. You know what I mean? Like they finally knew who I was, but it wasn't they knew who I was. They started to see that I have marketable, measurable results when it comes to influence on the same customers and the same demographic, psychographic that they're trying to target too. So I'm not naive to that, because that's very business sense. Right. And when they come to me, they know I know that too. So the conversations are different too.
Are you concerned that in that race, you'll lose the Willie that you have been when you started?
I don't necessarily fear it, because that's why I work very, very hard to be, I don't want to say that word, authentic, right? I work very hard to be me. Like you see, in all the videos, the energy, the poise is very much the same. Probably a little different depending on the time that the video got uploaded, because I probably shot it at 3:00 in the morning, right? But other than that, same me. So when people see me, when companies see me, when brands see me, this is what you get. What you see is what you get. Could I polish up? Sure. Could I say different words? Sure. But the essence in which this is coming out of does not change, because that's what everybody's known to see. When they see Willie, they know what they're going to get. They're going to get the energy. They're going to get the smiles. They're going to get the jokes. Whether they're lame or not, you'll laugh, because that's what the purpose of a joke is, right? You laugh. And you're going to get the teaching that's all woven in, no pun intended. It's all woven in to the same package. That's the deliverable. That's what makes me who I am. So it'd be really hard to, it'd have to be a hard 180 for me to be I get to whatever height that looks like, and I'm just this total person, Willie Smith here, Willie Nilly. It wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't make sense. And I'm doing it that way on purpose. So there's no way I could lose me, because me got me here.
Right. Well, tell me about your wife. I mean, I see your kids on the videos all the time, but what's her view of your career?
Oh, okay. Yeah, for my career. Well, she's okay. So if you have an actor in the front, right? Like say like I'm Brad Pitt or whatever, or like whatever actor, big actor, she's a director, right? She's the one that you don't see, but you'll see her name in the credits, right? Love My Wife. She weaves and she does like not necessarily old timey stuff, but like traditional things, like you know what I mean. Like she wants to like make things from scratch and make her own shoes and weave and dye yarn and you know very crafty, right? Very creative. And without her, like Willy Nilly Knits wouldn't exist because she's the one that watches my babies. She's the one that you know looks after things and sees things that I can't see out of my own skull. Right? She is my better half. And the reason why this is going to be as big as it is because of her and her stake in this whole endeavor. You know what I mean? Because I'll be honest, she didn't believe it was going to get this big. She did not. But when she did, and she's like, you know, she's very results based. She wants to see like actual stuff. Like she sees right through like all of like the emotion and the glam and all that. She sees right through that. Like, where's the money? What does this look like? How much? How long? Like very measurable things. And that keeps me on track too, because like if I'm gonna pitch something to her, it ain't gonna have no emotion in it. It's gonna be like, we doing this. This is how much they paying. This is where we're going with it. This is how much you gonna get. This is how much we can get for this. Da, da, da. And like, I really have to sell her on it. And once like she's bought in, I can really go because I don't have to worry about those other things like in the background, I guess. But like she's instrumental.
How do you define success? Like, is it money? Is it fame? Is it being able not to do something like or do it at your own schedule and your own time? Like, what's success to you?
Oh my goodness, what a great question. I try to refine that every day because it kind of changes like, you know, year over year, depending on like what's happening. But for me, I would have to say success would be the ability, because willingness is always there, but it has to be the ability to meet a need on demand. That's what I feel like success would be, because like you need money to do certain things, but you need to be present to do other things. You need to be like all those things that you were describing, like the freedom looks different in all kinds of spaces, right? Like I want to be free here, like I want to be financially free. I want to have no debt. I want to be able to spend time with my kids and stuff like that. But like for me to really sum that up, freedom, I'm not freedom, but success would mean for me the ability to meet a need, any need on demand. I need this done. We need to make this happen done. Like that's success.
You've mentioned that like at some point you were dreaming about, or like all of us knitters are dreaming about having free yarn and people sending us free yarn and people sending us needles. What's your yarn stash looks like nowadays?
There's things that I finally at that place where like there's things that I don't remember getting. I was like, where did this come from? When did I get this? When did this come? You know, and that's a great feeling. And again, we keep ourselves grounded. Like I literally at this point, I give away more yarn than I use because I know I'm gonna die and not be able to knit none of it. I can't knit all of it, right? But I know there are people that need to experience these kinds of things. So like that's how I really, you know, further my dream. There was a last Christmas, holiday season, I like had my little tote full of hats and towels and scarves and things that I've already made for like examples of. Took it over to a friend's house, dropped it on her table. Take what you want, anything. Go on, go on. There's cashmere in there, silk, alpaca, wool, acrylic, you name it, right? Take it, sure, right? Because at that point, you know, money can't matter so much. And if you are going to really make an impact on someone and have somebody like listen to you or give you the time of day, you have to always ask yourself, what's in it for them? What am I doing for them? Why would they even care? Right? So like that's why like I infuse that in all of my content as well. Here's why you should care. I'm here to make it about you. People told me they wanted to see my face more because they saw my hands too much. How about that, right? But yeah, my yarn stash is is kind of ridiculous. Not ridiculous, but it's organized as much as it can be. But the one thing about my yarn stash is that anything can go at any time. I'm not so emotionally like attached to any one skein of yarn
Right.
because if I have it, there's more of it.
Are you a one project kind of guy, or do you have like 80 projects on your needles at any time?
It's definitely the latter. Because that's the knitter's mind, right? Like you can only like knitting around for so long, right? You got to have a couple other things going on. Like we always have like that mindless knit where you can just knitting around till kingdom come and be okay. And then there's that other one where it's like 2 o'clock in the morning because everybody has to be quiet. So because every row is a cable and it's charted, and I've got to be able to do this and not mess anything up. So I definitely have like more than one project going. And it's always good for me to do that too, because I'm a teacher. And when people talk about like, oh, like, what about this sock and the guts and everything? Oh, I have something. And I'm like right in the middle of it. Or like, oh, what about this decrease? Oh, I got something. And I'm right in the middle of it, you know? So that's just the way I justify being able to have so many whips and not really have a lot of FOs. Because I have FOs. You know, as soon as they get done, like they're going to either be like showing off or given away. Because I'm getting to that place where like they're not seen so much as things to sell, but they're things to not things to sell for money,
Right.
but things to sell the notion that this guy knows what he's talking about. I have actual social proof that it exists, and I can use it as content because everything's content.
Are you a perfectionist when it comes to your knitting?
No, not at all, because there has to be some kind of character to it. Now, this is where like me and the snobs, like we butt heads because like there's got to be, when it comes to like things being professional, like everything's got to lay down, it's got to be even stitches, got to be distributed evenly, uniform, blah, 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 right? But if it's handmade, there's going to be some character in there. Now, characters don't necessarily need to be mistakes, but to like a professional knitter or a master knitter, right? Like character gets washed away because it has to be a garment that is just, you know, like put on the wall worthy. And like, you know, I've never really necessarily been that way. I know there's a place for it. And I'm not saying that like, you know, you got to have character all over the place because it's going to look like a mistake to somebody else. But it's true. But I know the audience that I'm looking to serve. And if I'm going to go at them with this critiquey kind of attitude, I'm going to lose them. I'm going to be excited for them about what they finished and what they've made. They're going to be their own critics. They're going to beat themselves up worse than I could ever do, right? I ain't got to mess with you. You're going to do that yourself, right? So I'm just going to be happy for you because everybody needs that pick-me-up kind of guy. I'm that guy.
Well, when you teach people, how do you adjust to explain it the way that they would understand? Because there are different ways people knit and there's different way people understand things. And like what's obvious and clear to one person is complete like over the head kind of to another person. How do you do that?
Okay, well, it's not like a one-time like blam thing. Like every time that I interact with somebody, like say I was interacting with you and we're doing this thing, I start with like, you know, the conventional way. Like say we're gonna do like a let's see, like a tubular cast on or something like that, right? I'm trying to, or double knitting. Let's just talk double knitting, right? The reason why I said find your buddy, that is something that is like third grade elementary school type stuff. Everybody knows what find your buddy means, right? So if that's the case, in this particular sense, I just built the bridge between what they already know and what I'm trying to get them to know. I want you to knit the same color. I want you to slip to make sure that you're working the same color every single time. Find your buddy. Green on green, pink on pink. Perfect. Done. Right? But sometimes it's not that simple. Sometimes like I'll do a couple of things, do a couple of analogies, and they don't get it. Right? So I'm constantly figuring out through what the information that they've given me. I'm kind of anticipating or like kind of like foreshadowing, well, what did you experience in this journey so far? What do you know? What do you have? Without really asking them that. And then, you know, kind of using like, you know, pop culture and like, you know, experiences that we've all had. And it's not necessarily a shot in the dark, but it's me shooting at a target. right? And with every time I shoot, I get closer, right? Okay, that was way off. Okay, calibrate. Okay, that was way off. Okay, closer. I'm getting closer. Okay, boom, we got it. Simple as that, right? Way easier said than done. But I'm looking for all of your experiences, and I'm looking for like, again, things that we all know to be true, and we do that. That's why I said find your buddy, or like look for the daylight, right? In Fisherman's Rib, you hear look for the daylight. Okay, I can see, and like that's what lights people up, because when they figure out how simple that little concept was, they'll never forget it.
Well, do you think when people book a class, do they book a class because they believe you can teach them, or do you think they book a class with you because of your personality?
Wow. I'm gonna argue the first one. I'm gonna argue because like they believe I can get them where they want to be. And that's a risk. And that's why, like, I'm not booked out like crazy, because that's a risk in itself. Like, people want to, when people pay something, they want that money that they paid for to grant them access to the thing. They want a guarantee. Like, I pay this money, I want to be guaranteed or my money back type stuff. Right? This is just us in life, right? So they took the risk. So that's why I tell people when they book with me, I'm like, yo, and like not even when they book with me, because that's not the first interaction. They say, oh, I want to do a class. I'm reaching out to you. Okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to learn? So I can get myself prepared. And then when they get there, the anxiety is up. You're like, what is this really about? Blah, blah, blah. This guy's in like a studio. He's got a hanger somewhere. He's got like drapes falling off. His blinds are all dusty. What is he doing? And then they start to feel the amount of preparation that I took to get ready, like a teacher. And I see like what they're doing, and I show them exactly, and I'm doing the project with them. Now the value of that $50 is starting to go up, and that's great. And now throughout the time, and we're like 20, 30 minutes in, and they've learned, and they're getting the hang of it, seeing what I'm doing. Now the amount of money that they paid looks like a steal compared to what the value that they achieved, that they got for it, right? Because if you've seen 10 hours worth of YouTube videos and you still can't do a tubular cast on, but you spend $50 and you do it in under an hour with me, which one is more valuable? Because one got you the thing and one didn't. So they get to make that mental assessment in their own minds. I ain't got to tell them nothing, because they've achieved what they wanted to achieve. Like I said you was. Like, kick it with me under an hour. You got it. But that's a risk. And people who take that risk, they get the reward.
Do you ever get disgruntled customers who are not satisfied with the class?
Good question. I haven't yet. Now, here's the reason why, like, I don't know. Because, people try to be nice to you, right? It's social media. You don't want to say anything crazy. They don't know if they're being recorded or not. I don't record any of my stuff, by the way, at all, right? If you don't like it, you just don't like it. But I knock on wood, I haven't had one disgruntled customer where they're like, I just don't get it. The hour's over. This was a waste, right? I have not had that yet, right? I'm not going to say ever, but like, because it's possible, right? The more that I do this, something's going to happen. But I've gotten, nothing but, positivity and, light, and people are just so happy that they can actually do this. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and just practice on my own. If I need something else, I'll go ahead and let you know. And there's some people that they've done a session and I've never seen them again, right? Maybe that 1 hour was enough and it springboarded them on to like whatever. But then, I have like a little boy whose mom is a sock designer, and she's already purchased well over 20 sessions. So there's value that's seen there. And this little guy, his name's Everett, he's 11 years old. He's made a hat. He's making a hat for his brother. He knows like 4 or 5 different stitch patterns. He's making a scarf, all from our little interactions every single Saturday. So like, it's the people who see the value in what I'm doing. And those are the people that I want to serve. I'm saying I don't need to serve everyone, because I don't need everyone to live comfortably. I just need my super fans, right? And I've crunched all the numbers. Like, in order for me to get 1,000 super fans, I can live comfortably. like, because they'll buy anything, they'll do anything, whatever. But I got to reach 1 million people to even get close to that. So, like, I've done the math on it. So, I haven't yet, but time's coming.
Well, what did you get out of these interactions? What's your pleasure in it?
Okay. It's the aha moment. It's the like thing where they have the needles and they're like, oh, you can see it on their face. That reaction is everything to me. That's what really, like, it really gets me going. I can't necessarily describe it, but like it's the thing like it's like the drug. It's the drug that like I chase all the time because again, I'm a firm believer. If I know how to do it, I can show you. I can get you right, and that's a bold statement to say. Hey, like you think you can just get me? Because there's people that took me up on that. So the thing that I get out of it is that like I get to further my vision. I get the opportunity to do what I love to do, and that's teaching. The vehicle is knitting. So like that's what I get out of it. And sometimes I get some money for that. And that kind of like funds, the adult human existence and me and my family. So there's always that.
Well, you mentioned that you would love to travel the world.
Yeah.
What do you love doing when you travel? Like, is it all about going to the yarn stores? Is it about finding some new fiber arts? Or when you're on vacation, do you knit?
Oh yes, I knit every day if I could. I knit every single day. But if I was to travel the world, it wouldn't be about any of those things. It'd be about building the relationships. The yarn shops exist because of the people. The whole community exists because of the people. The people make the space what it is. And if I can be a helpful pillar in the space and going out and doing that, like that's all like that's where the worth is. I can't be behind the screen doing what I'm doing for so long. It's unsustainable, right? Sometimes you got to get out there and people want to see your face, right? Like they got to see your face, like they got to know what you look like. See if you actually exist. So for some people, I may be like an AI simulation. Who knows, right? I'm just like the beta version. Who knows? But when I travel, I don't travel very often for knitting. But I know that's gonna start changing in like the next like year or two. Like I'm gonna get out there, go to Rhinebeck, go to these festivals and teach and stuff. And like it's gonna be live. And like, I've always known how to move a crowd because it's just energy. It's just light. That's what it is. But I don't go there for those things because if you can find it at one place, it can get shipped anywhere in the world and find you. But you can't find those people. You can't build those relationships. You can't make those memories, right? It's about legacy for me, right? When I leave, what am I going to be known for? Like, what am I going to be like, like talked about for? Like, what are my kids going to hear about me? Your dad was such a great this and that. And like, that's what it's about, and my kids being like, yeah, like my dad was great, like that's all I ever wanted.
Are you planning to teach them how to knit?
Absolutely. If they have the patience for my son Max, he learned how to cast on, do a slip knot, and he can do backwards loop cast on. And he'll do a couple of stitches, drop it, off he goes. But he knows how to do that. But he's just way more interested in doing the videos. He's like, I'll teach everybody how to knit. What's going on, everybody? It's Willie Nilly Knits. We out here. Yeah. And I'm just like, there's so much more to it. But I filmed him doing some things, and he just loves that part. Like he loves human interaction just like I do. So that's how I know he's my son. Just being able to show him how to knit and take him on with me, and we can make something of that because kids need to learn those skills. They're vital.
Do you ever get people ask you like why you knit as a man?
Let's do it. No, I haven't gotten any about why, like why do you do? You're a guy. Like why do you do that? I've never gotten that question like so direct, but I've gotten indirect questions. You know what I mean? Like well, I'm like no offense, like you're not like female or anything, and I was just like, whoa, I don't. So since because like in that statement, you pretty much get their stance, right? And for me, I would argue, yes, it's different, yes, it's nuanced, but to me, I would argue that I'm a threat. I'm just saying, I'm a threat, right? Because we all know what the status quo was, right? Older white women that were like seen in the Times and stuff like that. The other folks that are of color or like different genders or whatever, they just weren't on TV. They just weren't in the pictures. They weren't in books, right? That doesn't mean they don't exist, right? And what does it matter what I look like? I could be like a blob, an amorphous blob, and if you got the information from me, which which is what really matters to a lot of folks, then what's the difference? But I always find that interesting when they say that, because what space am I actually threatening? Like, is this something that you're trying to keep? Like, people try to gatekeep.
It's ironic because like knitting used to be only for men and women were not allowed into the knitting guilds. It was like purely male occupation for a long time, you know? So
exactly. Yeah, and that's super crazy. It's super different for me because like I'm assuming they don't know that because you coming at me sideways. And like, do you not know the history of how this works? You know what I mean? But like, there's only like pieces of history that like folks get to see, and like their perception is their reality, right? And I ain't mad at them. I don't be dogging them out or nothing like that. I'm gonna just keep doing me because like I know my vision is bigger than any one person, including me. That's why I can't get upset about those kinds of things, because it's the things that are at stake are much higher, and the more that I do this, the more I have to lose. So.
Well, I hope to run into you at one of the fiber festivals at Ryan.
Oh, we're gonna kick it. It'd be dope.
That would be very lovely. And I hope you're gonna share some wisdom behind the scenes after we're done with this interview of how you.
I mean, sure. I mean, whatever you want. I'm a man of the people, so whatever you want to do.
Well, thanks so much, Willie. It was lovely to have you on my channel. Thank you for answering all my questions, difficult or not. You
had good questions. I love it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there is a bit of personal like satisfaction. You know what I mean? Like, oh, she's gonna ask you some questions. I'm asking somebody. Hey, you know, like that's great. You know, and I want more people to know, like, you know, I'm just not this person that knows how to knit. Like, all of this came from somewhere. This wasn't like a snap. I'm just gonna knit, right? It wasn't that simple. So I appreciate your very thoughtful questions and deep questions into getting that fleshed out.
Thank you.